This is going to be the start of a second series on this channel where instead of looking at individual stories and the context surrounding them, we'll be looking at all of the actions of a nation over a longer period of time. And this is the first episode, which will be about a nation that played a large part in the Eightfold War, the Fellowship of Bytos. Now the Fellowship was made up of 3 awakened tribes who all followed Bytosism, the Tasafi with Amali, the Oskatan with Occitania, and the Uroli with Urol. The Amali were a determined, stubborn people who valued faith above all else, but they weren't dogmatic. Every citizen was trained from birth to understand even the most esoteric practices of their faith. Led by Halifs who were made of the wisest and most knowledgeable of the religious caste. Because of this, the Amali made up the majority of the Fellowship's religious officials. There were also warrior Halifs called Turgles who led their warriors into battle. The Oskatan were pragmatic yet idealistic people who preferred the work of scholars, diplomats, and merchants over martial or religious skills. This meant they were less fanatical about Bytosism, but made up for it with an easy charm that was hard to dislike, smoothing over frictions between the Fellowship. The Uroli, on the other hand, were boisterous and known for their martial prowess, valuing honor and faith above all else. They may lack the manners and refinement of the Oskatan, but they were extremely loyal allies. While not all of the warriors of the Fellowship were Uroli, they were all at least trained by them. The first actions of the Fellowship were taken by the Urol, who sent an envoy north to the Bog, an odd people they had sporadic contact with in the past. The Bog were a race of objectively humans, but their voracious appetites had transformed them into massive tubs of lard, and regularly resorted to cannibalism and eating the battlefield dead and wounded to sate their hunger. The Urol met with the awakened Bog tribe of Umlugo Bog, led by Papa Bog. After a round of introductions, Papa Bog informed the diplomat that he would only continue the talks if they partook in the divine soup, a concoction of unknown ingredients that nonetheless tasted good. The diplomat agreed, though was uneasy about not knowing what went into the soup. Impressed with the diplomat's willingness, Papa Bog continued the talks and soon a military alliance was formed. While the Uroli diplomats were making inroads to the north, the Fellowship was busy constructing actual roads to improve communication with the other members. Capitalizing on this, the Amali started to send their priests from village to village, encouraging the arts, especially music and poetry, in order to more effectively spread their divine stories across the land. The Oskatans were pleased with the improved infrastructure, however they had technically lost 2 of their trading partners when confederating into the Fellowship, and they started to send riders to their brother tribes of Salata, Estan, and Estendre, offering to re-establish trade. They then sent ships westward down the coast and met the awakened tribe of Needlick, proposing the same. The Oskatan banner army of 2,000 was also raised, a small force compared to the others at the time, but being protected by the militaristic might of Urol, they had little need for massive armies. Additionally, following the Uroli trading routes, the Oskatans reached out to the Umlugo Bog and started trading with them. This soon led to trade with Positania and Frodelks. The newfound wealth brought in by these trade deals had Alico start looking towards the future and called a meeting of the other Oskatan tribes of Saleta, Este, and Estendre, looking to unite them under the Fellowship. After consideration, they agreed on one condition. Occitania would assist them in invading the tribe of Arasacta to the north, whose foreign religion they viewed as a threat. Alico, now seeing his dreams start to be realized, went even further, offering to lobby the other members of the Fellowship to join the conflict. This was met very favorably, and Alico left, calling upon the Urol and Amali. The arch-halif of all the Amali responded, organize the Turgal, declare the penance. Aurelian, leader of the Uroli, would respond, call demands holy fire, men, and we shall answer his demand. And so the Fellowship began to prepare for war. Papa Bog, seeing the threat against his allies as a threat against him, would also begin marshalling his forces. Over the next few weeks, more and more of the forces of the Fellowship would be called upon, weapons mustered, and men trained in preparation. But it was during this time that a growing separatist movement in Occitania would begin to boil over, with them issuing an ultimatum. Occitania leaves the Fellowship willingly or by force. Alico, not wanting all of his dreams to be shattered, quickly met with the leaders of the movement, and assuaged them that the Fellowship would catapult them to the zenith of regional power, rather than limiting them as they feared. To prove this, he offered the leaders a place in the Octanian Council to closer see the benefits of this union. They agreed and formed the Octanian pluralist and merchant movements within the council. While Alico was struggling to keep his people in the Fellowship, Aurelian was looking to bring the other Euroli tribes into the fold as well. Meeting with them, it was clear they were afraid of Bytosism could be left in the dust due to the rapid expansion of the United Holy Kingdoms in the east and the Braga Fanati in the west. Aurelian proclaimed that the Pyre of Call had been found in Amali, and Call himself demands fires be lit in their hearts once more and would grant them victory. The deal was made, and the other Euroli tribes would join if Eurol would embark on a holy war to defend Bytosism. During these preparations, messengers from the east would arrive. Fort Kido called for aid. Their men had passed through the Fellowship land some year previous and left a favorable impression, but with war preparations being made, not much could be spared. A few hundred volunteers set forth to help defend, lured by the promise of reward and glory. While that was occurring, the Ural traders, who frequently sailed the river to Bogland, kept going northward and met the people of Artoile. A trade agreement was hammered out with the fruit-rich south and the expert stonemasons of the Artoile Mountains. On the return, however, they were met with a heated debate. It seems the separatist movements weren't limited to the Oscatans, and another movement had grown in Ural. They too seemed to think that the Fellowship was limiting their potential rather than enhancing it, that Ural should stand beside, but apart from the Fellowship. Aurelian countered that the Fellowship was formed by Call himself, forged through word and blood. What would the others think if Ural left them? Then they were breaking the most sacred of oaths. The argument would peter out, with the separatists not entirely convinced, but willing to wait and see. However, the war with Arasakta would have to be put on hold, as a large war to the west was brewing. The true Braga Imperium, who had gained much attention for their rapid expansion and conquest, was now at war with an entire people. Already wary of such a militaristic nation, the Fellowship held a meeting to postpone their conquest of Arasakta to direct their attention to this new threat. After some discussion, it was agreed, and they marched westward, getting the port of Prisloha. The war itself was a quick affair, with the Fellowship forces swarming over the lands and capitulating the Imperium. The aftermath saw the formation of the Bytosian Enclaves, a group of crusader states formed by the warriors of the Fellowship who settled rather than home. And that's where we'll leave the Fellowship, in the aftermath of the victorious war as they prepared for the coming Age of Bronze.